Hi, everybody. Rick Manning here. Representative Chip Roy, who I call a friend, and I'm happy to do so, just laid out the Biden administration today, talking about the border crisis. We're going to see waves of people coming across the border on the 11th. And Chip Roy lays it out. He lays this crisis out in a way that's unmistakable, and the absolute moral imperative to try to end the open border policy of the Biden administration becomes more and more clear. Just listen to Chip just tear into the Biden administration.
5 million have been encountered at the southern border. 2 million have been released into the United States, incentivizing more to come. Over 1.5 million have evaded apprehension, i.e. gotaways, evading detection from Border Patrol since the beginning of this administration. Fentanyl pouring into our communities. Border Patrol has seized over 35,000 pounds of fentanyl. Just last Thursday morning, I met with 3 fentanyl moms, one of dozens of moms that I've met with because their children have died from fentanyl. 8 children in the school district in the county in which I reside, southwest of Austin, have died of fentanyl poisoning since last August. Over 10 have had to be resuscitated, revived with Narcan. Just last summer, 53 migrants effectively cooked in a tractor trailer in the hot Texas heat in San Antonio, Texas. 856 dead migrants, bodies found along the Rio Grande and in South Texas and on ranches. Little girls sold into the sex trafficking trade, held in stash houses in Laredo and Brownsville and El Paso and San Antonio and Houston and throughout this country. We know this to be true. It is documented to be true. And now the administration can't even keep up with the children that we have, with 85,000, according to the New York Times, not able to be contacted.
Let's just stop it right there. 85,000 children not able to be contacted. Remember when they were releasing, the idea was we're going to let the parent go with the parents? The fact of the matter is, when you have 85,000 children that you can't contact, that you can't locate, that tells you those children have been sent underground, that they're now part of that they've been trafficked. They're now part of a slave network, which is engulfing America, because it's not slave labor, but with its children, a lot of times it's sex slavery. The U.S. government, the Biden administration, has effectively sanctioned child abuse under the guise of compassion. Just remember, that's just what they've done. Let's hear what else Chip has to say.
And then my colleagues just blithely wiped that away, saying, oh, that's not true. It was a phone call. They didn't get them. They must be with a family member. What member of this body would treat their child that way? Oh, I called and didn't get a hold of them. Oh, well. But we do that with 85,000 children? I guess that's not nearly as effective as a photo op in white pantsuit sitting next to kids in cages, alleged, despite those cages were created by the previous administration specifically for the protection of children. But oh no, it doesn't look as good to have a photo op when you've got 85,000 missing children. And tomorrow, Title 42 expires. Now, for the average American, Title 42 is just something, they don't know what that is. What it is a part of our health code that allows us to say that we're going to turn people away in the middle of a pandemic. Yet the administration has been using that as effectively their only means of managing the border, to the extent you could call it managing the border. In March, for example, there were approximately 200,000 apprehensions. We're going to blow right through that right now because we're at 10, 11, 12,000 apprehensions a day. But when you have those 200,000 apprehensions, not even counting all of the parole, half of those were being turned away under Title 42. But when Title 42 expires tomorrow, more will come. There's an explosion at the border. None will be turned away because this administration has specifically chosen to ignore the law.
Yeah, once again, let's just review what that fact. In the administration, the Biden administration said they needed to delay ending the emergency the COVID emergency because they needed a plan for dealing with Title 42 and the impacts at the border. They said this 3 months ago. 3 months ago, there was a push, this administration pushed to end Title 42 in the courts and lost. And as a result of losing that fight in the courts, they said, well, we need delay so we can, one of their arguments was, we need to be able to have time. Well, you know what? They've had more than 2 years. And what they've accomplished is a complete erasure of our border. And tomorrow, May 11th, we are going to see that erasure becoming more permanent. Thousands, tens of thousands of people are lined up at the border. CNN had a reporter who was overwhelmed by the number of people across the border from El Paso last week. The numbers are increasing. The reports out of Guatemala that the Guatemalan president tried to reach the administration and say there's tens of thousands of Venezuelans heading north specifically to come into your country. And his call, the president of Guatemala's call was unreturned. Yeah, remember Kamala Harris, her whole job was to solve the international problem. Well, she didn't take a call from the Guatemalan president who was reporting a massive potential invasion of people from a country that hates our guts and wants to destroy us, coming north to get across our border and infiltrate our country. It's astonishing. Let's hear more from Chip.
And this administration is refusing to do their job to defend the border of the United States. The least compassionate, the least Christian, the least empathetic thing that a country could do is to allow human beings to be used as political pawns by cartels for profit, while Americans die by the thousands, while migrants get raped and abused and put in stash houses by cartels for profit by the thousands, while migrants die along the southern border by the hundreds, if not the thousands now, while our own people get overrun, their own ranches. I've sat and met with the ranch owners in South Texas, run across finding a dead body of a young woman, a mother with a baby on their ranch. Imagine, in the most powerful nation in the history of the world, thinking it's compassionate to have a system that allows that. But yet that is precisely what we do. Unfortunately, what my colleagues' response will be is, we're going to have to do something about our immigration system and future flow and figuring out what we're going to do to make sure that we reform immigration. Don't you know, if we had comprehensive immigration reform, this would all just magically evaporate. Completely not true. The fact of the matter is, the starting point for any sensible border and immigration plan is a secure border in which you actually enforce the laws of the United States. Why? So people know what the rules are. We allow 600,000 to a million and 1.2 million, depending on the year, people to come into this country legally, as we should. Yes, we need to reform our immigration system, but none of it matters if we're going to embrace lawlessness and wide open borders and law to the detriment of the very system that attracts people from around the world. We should be exporting the rule of law rather than importing lawlessness, fentanyl, death, and destruction. And the legislation we have before us would be a giant step towards ensuring that we can hold this administration accountable to make sure that we secure our border, protect our citizens, and protect migrants who seek to come here. And with that, I will reserve.
Thank goodness for Chip Roy and his willingness to speak the truth about what's happening at the border. Chip has spent a lot of his time at the border. He spent a lot of time meeting with people at the border, meeting with Border Patrol, meeting with others. HR 2 is up on the House floor and up on the House floor on Wednesday. You may be viewing this later than that, and will likely have the Republican votes to pass it. The question is, will the Democrats do anything? Will the hundreds, if not thousands of dead immigrants directly as a result of Joe Biden's failure to enforce the law, will hundreds of dead immigrants have their lives be forgotten? Will the tens of thousands of children who are being trafficked, whose lives have become, they came to America as a place of opportunity and they are now living in hell, whose parents sent them north, put them in the hands of the cartel, and the cartel now treats their children as property to be traded. It is reprehensible what the Biden administration is doing. There is a legislation to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, the Homeland Security Secretary, and the Americans for Limited Government supports his impeachment. And let's hope that Congress takes up the impeachment of Mayorkas as job one, to force the Biden administration to be held accountable for their abuse of migrants, children, and the total flouting and ignoring of U.S. law, all the while saying, gee, if we just reform the law, then it would work. No, actually follow the existing law. Follow the existing law. Prove that you can actually secure the border, and then maybe we can figure out, what the immigration levels need to be. But you don't get to say, open the border and say, oh, well, if only we had an immigration law. We have immigration law. Follow it. It's just, can't help. It's just outrageous. It's beyond comprehension. With that, please let Congress know that you support securing our border. Demand that they stand up for our border. I don't care if it's Republican, Democrat, Independent. Don't care. Demand that they support securing our border. It's the only humane thing that we can do.